Hello everybody, let's have ourselves a chat. I'm John from Rusty Chains, and today we're going to be looking at the new build I've put together for the Assassin skill line in Payday 3. It's a new skill line based entirely around marking as many enemies as possible, killing them and spreading the marks. It's a very fun, fresh new way to play Payday, where the game kind of almost picks your targets for you as you go through them. It's very fun, I like it a lot, so let's just dive right in. First up in skills, we're actually going to start from the bottom with the Assassin skill tree and go up, because the Assassin is the bread and butter of this build, so it makes sense to just start with that. So we're going to Ace, Assassin based, so whenever you kill an enemy with a suppressed weapon, you get in Rush, and whenever you manually mark a guard or law enforcement, you also gain Rush. Next we're going to grab Skimming the Ground, so if you're wielding a suppressed weapon, your crouching move speed is increased by 20%. This is really handy for this build, just in case you're in cover. You can dart around a little more quickly to reposition for reasons that we're going to talk about in a second. Duck and Weave. As long as you have Rush, you deal 25% more damage to enemies from behind. This bonus is reduced by 5% for each armor chunk you currently have beyond the first. So, for that reason, we're going to use some lighter armor on this build, and we'll talk about that in a second. But this is where Skimming the Ground comes in handy. It helps with repositioning to get behind enemies for Duck and Weave. Killer Kinesthetics. Whenever you kill a marked enemy with a suppressed weapon, the nearest unmarked enemy within 10 meters of that target will become marked. So this is the thing that helps the marks permeate. We want as many people marked as possible all the time with this build. Assassin's Medal. If you have no armor, killing a marked enemy with a suppressed weapon will restore 10 health. Very handy skill. It comes in handy a lot with this build. And fun fact, it does not stop at regular health. This can go up to overheal as well. You can get 2 full health bars off this skill. Death Knell. Any enemy affected by your throwables becomes marked. This is super important. Grab it. We're going to talk about why more in a second. So next we're going to go up to Strategist. Strategist Basic allows us to mark one additional target, and they last 20% longer. Then you ace it, does the same thing again. So that's another marked target and another 20% boost. So even more marked enemies, and we have more flexibility with that. Combat Marking. As long as you have Edge, you deal an extra 20% against any marked target. So this is huge. This is where the build really comes together. Because now we do 20% on marked targets, we're marking everyone, and that's on top of the 10% that Edge already gives us. So we're doing huge damage to marked targets, and then if we remember that skill from the Assassin skill line, we're also doing even more damage to enemies from behind, especially if we're on low or light armor. Misdirect. As long as you have Rush, you have a 20% chance of avoiding taking damage from shots fired by marked enemies. So you're always going to be fighting marked people with this build, and this gives you kind of a dodge chance against those marked enemies. Again, very, very helpful. Mark for Death. Whenever you are downed or disabled by an enemy, that enemy and up to 5 enemies within 5 meters of you are marked. So even when you go down, you're still marking people, more and more marks going out. So at this point, we're marking tons of people for a long period of time for massive damage. That is the bread and butter of this build at its core, and we still have a few more skills to go. We go up to Enforcer real quick, just Enforcer Basic. Whenever you kill 2 enemies within 4 seconds that are within 5 meters of you, you gain Grit. We're going to be doing this all the time, so we're going to have Grit a lot of the time. Demolitionist. Explosions caused by your shots or throwables have their area of effect increased by 20%. Very handy for the throwable we use for this build. We're going to talk about that more in a second. Overcooked. Any throwable or weapon you use that has an explosive component will no longer run on a timer and will immediately explode on impact with the environment or an NPC. And then your throwable capacity is increased by 2 with extra munitions. This build uses smoke grenades. So with this, the smoke is bigger, it immediately pops, and we have more of them. And then remember from Death Knell, anyone in our smoke gets marked. You can also use flashbangs for this. I prefer smokes personally, just because it kind of lingers a bit, so as more people wander into that, it's more marks, but we're doing bigger, instant, prolonged smoke bombs for marking. Then we're going to head to the Escapist tree, grab Escapist Basic. Whenever you are masked up in Sprint for at least 3 seconds, you gain Rush, because we're always having Rush with this build. That's a core tenet of it. Battering Ram, everyone knows what this does. It's just good to have so you can reposition to get behind those enemies for that damage boost much easier. And Swift, your base sprinting speed when masked on is increased by 10%. And we're going to go up here to Infiltrator. Throwables you use have a 10% chance to be replenished after they're destroyed. So you throw a smoke bomb, 20% chance to get it back. Very handy, again. And then top up in Ammo Specialist, interacting with any ammo bag will restore an additional 20% ammo and fully restock your throwables. So you always have a ton of smoke bombs. With this build starting out, you carry 5 and then you can replenish them super easily. So we're smoking a lot, which marks people a lot, which gives us that big damage. We're going to go for Mower Aced. Every 35 bullets you shoot, you gain edge. Whenever you reload a weapon with an empty mag, you refresh your current edge. Recoil handling, as long as you have edge, your weapon recoil is reduced. This is very important for some of the weapons we use with this build. Suppressive fire. As long as you have edge, every shot from your weapon has a chance to inflict a heavy stagger. Ammo funnel. As long as you have edge, ammo you pick up is directly added to your equipped weapons magazine. If your mag is full, then it goes to the reserves instead. This is also very, very handy, because we're going to be smoking crowds of enemies, running into there, and just spraying those crowds down. So having this immediately all go back to that, along with the skill that gives us grit for close-by enemies. We're going to get grit, so we can be in there in that smoke bomb where they've reduced aim, tank that damage, and then just keep spraying. Very helpful. Replenish, as long as you have edge, you automatically pick up ammo dropped by enemies you have killed. This, with ammo funnel, really makes you stay in this fight longer for this build. Very helpful. And then sprint loaded, you can reload while sprinting. Makes sense. So to summarize, we're marking as many enemies as we can, getting up close to them, and spraying them down with a bullet hose. And we're made to survive longer as we do this. So the weapons we are using for this. We are using the Ziv Commando. With the Ziv Commando on this build, we are using the Slate RDS Red Dot Sight. And this does require level 16 and 50 C-Stack, so you're going to have to put in a little bit of an investment for it. The barrel extension is the Snub Silencer. Again, we need silencers for a lot of these skills to take effect, so this is handy. You're going to want the Quick Pull Mag, the padded tube stock, and the vertical grip. A lot of these mods are based around sprint to shooting fire. So you run in, immediately ready to shoot, bullet hose, there you go. So our secondary is going to be the Signature 403 pistol. You're going to want the Quick Pull Mag, the Snub Silencer, the Box RDS, and the Rib Grip. Again, just very handy as a secondary to just bip some dudes with the Ziv low on ammo sometimes. We're going to want the adaptive armor just so we can have that low armor for that damage buff when we're behind, and then if it breaks, we can get that health regen from our kills as well. Deployables, the ammo bag to get more smoke bombs. Throwables, obviously the smoke bombs. And then our tool is the motion sensor, so we can tag more and more enemies as we go. Now with that said, let's jump right in.